Well, here is a design for some seating that might go into a small courtyard. The design consists of some blocks of masonry, 400mm square, they'll be 400mm cube in fact, and then some boards that stretch between individual masonry blocks, and the boards are 1800 long, and there's a bracket under the boards, which is why the bracket's shown in a hidden line type pattern, and we're now ready to move this into SketchUp to see if we can build a 3D model based on it. So let's do that. Let's send this information out in a form suitable for SketchUp. To do that, we go DXF out, and we'll go to the desktop, and we'll call it Landscape Design, and we're going to make a DXF or Exchange file ready to move into the SketchUp environment, and everything should be accurate. Well, let's look at the end result before we start. Here we are in SketchUp, and there's our 3D model of the plan that we've just been looking at in gCADPlus. Well, here we are in SketchUp 2020, and just as in gCADPlus, any new model or drawing will start with some sort of template. We'll pick a simple template based on a meter as the unit of measure. So we're moving into the SketchUp 2020 environment. Before I do anything, I'll just check my model and go to Model Information. Format is decimal, length meters. Well, we work in millimeters in gCADPlus, so let's set that value to millimeters, and we're okay. So our model is now correct. Let's bring in we'll import our DXF file. We've called it Landscape Design, so we import it and we go OK. And let's orbit around a little, and everything looks relatively normal. It's always a good idea when you're in a strange new CAD environment just to check units. So we've got a measuring tool here, and if I click from one side of that masonry block to the other, I'm getting a value of 10160 millimeters. That's clearly wrong. So there's some error maybe in our DXF output or in the way we've set SketchUp up. I want to check this with a very old version of SketchUp that I can use to import DXF files. I'm currently using the trial version of SketchUp 2020, so I can't play with this too many days longer, but to me that is a serious error. Well, I'm now going to use a very old version of SketchUp now and try the same thing. So we'll go File and Import, and there's our DXF file. I've not changed it in any way, brought it in. Let's now use the Orbit tool, and we'll zoom out just a little, and there's our model. Now to me that looks better immediately, but let's just check our dimensions. From one side of the masonry block to the other is in fact, let me do that again. From one side of the block to the other is 400mm, exactly as we suspect, 400mm. So it becomes a really easy thing to do now, of course, which was what I was attempting to demonstrate in 2020 version of SketchUp. Just put a rectangle down, then we use the push-pull tool, bring it up, and we can type 500, and in goes the block the correct height. And I can do the same thing with other blocks. Could have done that all in one go, and do exactly the same thing with our timber boards that stretch between the individual blocks. So I shall do some more research, but I have no idea until I look on the net, see if someone else has recognised this sort of problem. Well, what I thought we would do is just develop the model a little further. So the blue bit is what came across from gCADPlus, and I'm using that as the base to make a 3D model. And just as you do in gCADPlus, the way to effectively make models or design quickly is to create blocks. If I pick the masonry block, it's called a component in gCADPlus, so I've called that masonry block 400 by 400 by 500. There's a bracket which will be screwed to the block itself, obviously called a bracket. We put it on a furniture layer just as it was in gCADPlus, and so there's the bracket, and this one here we've called that a 50mm plank, which will sit between and stretch between the masonry blocks. So we're now ready to save this and then put it into SketchUp 2020 and just see. I sincerely hope that it'll be dimensionally accurate. We want to be able to go into SketchUp and use the measure tool and get, in this case, 400 as we go across, and for height we want 500. Let's see how we go. Well, the model does open in SketchUp 2020, but we're warned that we won't be able to load it back in the earlier version that we used. So SketchUp's not forward and backward compatible, which is why we make gCADPlus. You can run gCADPlus in the earlier version and the latest version and vice versa. However, I digress. Let's go OK. And what we're most interested in, have we now got our sizes correct? And clearly we have. That's 400 and this will be 500. So we can zoom out. So I'll do some more researching and see if we can find out quite why we're going wrong in the template in SketchUp 2020. Well, the next step might well be to copy the planks or boards across, and I can return to gCADPlus and quickly determine that the distance I want to copy them across is that there's a gap of 6.6mm between each of the planks, and the planks are 60mm wide. So let's take the copy tool and we're going to copy from that point there. We hold the control key down and we click but type 66.6. Well, I've added a little more to the design and put view and shadows on. So we're getting a reasonably realistic view of how this design will look, and we can always export it back as an image and put it back into gCADPlus. But remember that the whole of this model is being built on the information that came from gCADPlus. We're hoping to make a single drawing in SketchUp, and we'll make a block of all of that, and then we can use it in future projects. Quite why we're having a problem with SketchUp 2020 is still a mystery.